All right, today all thing color. So it'll be kind of the color math behind it and kind of the creative choices behind it and how to get there. Right? It won't be a heavy day. It'll be fairly light. We'll talk a lot about the color math and how to get there, allow you to play along with it, and then go from there. So. Question.
I can't seem to find Windows on my computer for some reason.
I know, it's annoying in this lab. Windows 10 is really weird. So I actually had to track it down by seriously searching for it. So, and then I made a shortcut here. But yeah, let's check this out. So Window E could pop up in a little Explorer for you. A little Explorer window, is that a word? And then you want to look at, like, on my C drive, so Windows C drive, if you look for Nuke X, LXs, and see what propagates in the search feature, you'll probably find something of use. Yeah, it is weird and annoying. But it's starting to find paths to the executable. And the other thing which I find annoying is I can't expand this length of the window. But basically, I'm looking for something like this. Program data, Microsoft Start menu, Foundry, Nuke X. So if I click on that, it's launching it. Actually, that one's a non-commercial. Wrong one. This one. And there she goes. All right. You can, once you find it, you can also ask Windows politely to right mouse click and create a shortcut. It'll say, no, you can't create it here in the... You can't create it here, but I'll do it on the desktop instead. It's like, why, yes, that's in fact what I actually want on my desktop. And then say yes. So, see if you can find that.
Yeah, that works.
That works? Okay. I mean, realistically, I've got a new PC at home, got Windows 10. It totally just works. Don't know why. The operating system's kind of funky. I mean, like, it gets like, hey, look at all this shit. Like, I don't see any of the... Mine actually has like, hey, you want to play Minecraft? Hey, you want to play fucking Halo and any other Microsoft game ever? Like, go away, bloatware. But yeah, it's a little off. But we should be good with that. Okay, so find Nuke and fire it up. There it is. So today... Nuke 10 footage. Hey, hello. Nuke script color basic script. Bam. And open. Temperature. Everyone cozy, comfortable.
No, it got shut off, so I wasn't sure if that was on purpose or not.
Too warm? Too.
Yeah,
Too hot?
it's cool enough.
Need to chill out. It's my Mr. Freeze. My Mr. Freeze impersonation. Okay, so we're going to talk about all things color today. So out of the gate again, conceptually, Nuke is what? An application working in full flow color space. Yes.
We should have that with you, right?
You don't have to. I'm just going to be poking and showing you stuff. Feel free to do your own, open your script and start poking around to things if you so desire. The first part is more me being expositional. Yes. Oh, you want to see an image? You're so demanding. That is a good question. How come I'm up? I'm just not up.
It's probably on extended.
Pardon me, I'm extended here. So I right mouse click on the desktop. Is that right? And then display settings.
Settings. And two, and scroll down. Scroll down.
Extend these, mirror that.
Mirror.
So duplicate this way.
Yeah, duplicate.
2. That looks right. And then keep changes. All right, look at that. Sweet. Woohoo. All right, cool. Right. So there we go. As I was saying, yeah, you can follow along with the footage. So if you hit R to read and bring in M Nuke Lessons 3 footage, I'm currently going to poke at an image called Takeoff. But feel free to bring in like the whole shebang, so because we're going to be playing with this color anyway. So R to read. I'm going to bring ashtray, fish, all this stuff. Sure, yeah, bring it all.
Bringing everything.
If you so desire. Again, the first one is just, more importantly, just follow along. I'm gonna start talking about color. If you want to start playing along, I'm actually going to give you time to play with color by yourself to kind of get comfortable with it. Conceptually, you can do it. Yes.
What was the hotkey to get over the stack like that again? Or unfold or like that?
To lay things out, the intuitive hotkey would be L. Lay. Le petit fromage. Here is there's a Kodak Cineon image, right, that you can play around with for color purposes. In general, I'm going to be poking out an image that is called Takeoff. Now, right, where's my other script? It is here. So, Nuke is as I was mentioning before, Nuke is a full float color package. What does that mean? So, right now you guys are taking lighting perhaps. Okay. You're probably rendering EXRs in half float space, right? So, 16-bit linear color, right? Nuke is full 32-bit float linear color by default, right? So what does that mean? It means it's got a huge bandwidth, a huge gamut to deal with all sorts of color space, and all sorts of different images with all different, bit depths, color spaces, and options. So most commonly, you're probably exposed to things like sRGB images. So this IFF, all these IFFs are sRGB. So how do I know? Double click on it. Default color space sRGB. All right, cool. If I flutter around, I can probably find, an HDR, right? Throw this guy at the viewer. So this is a float image. This is a half float image. It's a panorama. And so when I talk about float, we talked about this I think before. Most color space by default is 0 to 1 color space. So it exists between ranges of 0 to 1. And I'm going to talk about this kind of a lot and showing you this awesome plotted scan line. This is kind of a tripped out little example. But literally talking about the range from 1, which would be your purest white, your white point, 0, which would be your blacks, shadow, and 0.5, which is most of your midtones. So all the ranges that are normally exposed, highlights, midtones, and shadows. Okay. So it's this display of color across this curve that we usually hear the terminology of LUT, a lookup table. You're like, all right, what the fuck is a LUT? A lookup table is like a coffee table. I don't get it. All you're really saying is to get your curve to this new position or to accommodate that color space, I need this table of numbers to describe that curve. It's like an algebraic curve, right? So 0 to 1 colors, right? So default sRGB. Oh, I don't have it up here, do I? No, I guess I don't. So things like Targas, most TIFFs, JPEGs, IFFs, right? PNGs. Those are all in the sRGB typically 8-bit images, right? Cineon by default, or DPXs, are most commonly 10-bit log, different color space. Cineon, logarithmic color space. Sometimes we talk about a little bit of color space and you might be glazing over and it's certainly something that you should kind of pursue a little deeper. I mean, as you feel like you can accommodate it, right? There's a lot of cool tech seminars that sound very boring, but they are pretty informative about color space, for example. But in general, this Cineon image is something that kind of been around forever, since I started in comp world and visual effects in the 90s, right? So it's always like, place down the street used to be Kodak, right down this way. I used to work down the other side of the street, Pack Title, right? We had film scans, right? The first generation Cineon, .cin for Cineon, Kodak, right? A logarithmic image, a film scan image. It's a scanned individual frame. It has grain, film grain, right? Red, green, blue, film grain image. And you're like, all right, well, that's kind of old school, man. We're not shooting too many films yet. Well, it just so happens, even with today's all digital acquisition, Alexa, Arri Alexa, Red Epic Dragon, right? All these like raw digital format acquisitions, we all still typically output in a logarithmic file format. Now, this one's a Cineon. Most commonly, it's going to be DPX. How's that different? Header information, right? It's got a placeholder to embed metadata, quick key code, time code, data about the shot, reel, etc. Right? The good news is, if you don't know much about color, Nuke's going to be your buddy anyway, because what? It's going to do all the color math conversion for you. S for settings. So I'm a big stickler about set your globals up front, all that fun stuff, which is going to be great. Set your working resolution, set your frame range for things you know you're going to work on. Great. Right adjacent to this is a color tab. Boom, look at that. Check that out. Linear, by default. That's our curve, right? That's that curve I keep talking about. White's going to be a 0 point. Anything going beyond 1 is going to be a float value image. True negative colors as well, right? So when you hear the term LUT, or a sRGB LUT conversion, it's basically the inverse of this curve to get to linear, right? So sRGB, if you're shooting JPEGs on your phone or whatever, or even a digital SLR that's not raw, that would be sRGB color space. Rec 709 in your broadcast monitor, all your TVs and stuff are going to be a Rec 709. Broadcast for television, most likely Rec 709. Here's our buddy Cineon, a 10-bit logarithmic by default. Notice that the software is doing some of the choices for you already. Whenever I see a Cineon file, I apply a log to lin conversion. Awesome. Whenever I see anything relative to this monitor, this monitor is working in sRGB color space. Yes. If I get an 8-bit image by default, I'm most likely going to assume it's sRGB. 16-bit, still sRGB. 16-bit TIFF, most likely, yes. Log conversion, and then again, any of your float files, so that when you render a half float EXR with zip line compression or scan line zip compression out of your out of Arnold, out of V-Ray, it's going to be linear. So Nuke is linear by default, therefore it's not even a conversion, right? It just comes in as is. If color management has been done correctly in the render package of choice. Okay? And again, there's all sorts of different flavors of, look, Viper logs and Panavision logs and Sony logs and Red Space and, a lot, right? There's a lot going on. Supporting a lot of different file formats. Okay. Again, as I mentioned, doing a lot of the work for you. Cool. So, meanwhile, back to this. So, this is a big, massive jumble of craziness, but I'm going to just show you a bunch of different nodes. This default image is a 8-bit sRGB image. Great. But it also represents a full gamut of that range, right? It's got pure whites, right? Pure one value whites up here. It's got deep dark shadows, 0, 0 values down here. Even absolute digital values down here, 0, 0 digital blacks, as you can see here. Now note, remember I already mentioned, you're never going to have absolute 0 values in a photographic image, even in a deep, dark, contrasty shadow like those pompons, right? It's like still not absolute 0. This is absolute digital 0 down here. You can find it. Okay? Absolute 0. And then, of course, most of the image is properly exposed to the mid-tone ranges, right, as you'd expect. All right, great. Now, for whatever reason, this guy actually has an alpha channel baked into it. Weird, odd, but you know, it is what it is. That being said, be aware of the fact that when you're color correcting stuff, what channels are you affecting? So, great. Am I switching to the blue channels? Yeah, so that's what I just did. So the hotkey for alpha channel, A. So again, intuitive. R is red, green is green, G is green, B is blue, A is alpha. And then the cool thing about Nuke, again, toggle on, toggle off, alpha on, alpha off. Right? So all the color operators live here. That 3-wheel cheese, they went all cool, sexy gray. Back in the day, it was RGB, but too colorful. Don't want to distract from my artistic palette. So now it's gray, gray, gray. It represents red, green, blue, right? So in general, all the color operators live here. The atomic level or math level, right? So these are our go-tos for most common things. Again, universal across all languages because it's math, but also universal in terms of applications. So when you're talking the same jargon of like, oh, it's an offset, oh, it's an add, oh, it's a plus. Those are all additive colors. So they're all, you should expect it similarly in terms of the color math that's being applied. Multiply, add, and gamma. Those are our big three. And then there's a clusters of them, color corrector and grade. And then a bunch of one-off. There's some technical ones like color lookup, color grade by curve, clamping, generating 3D LUTs and dealing with 3D LUTs. OCIO, moving forward with color space technology. OCIO is kind of an agnostic color file format that's being pushed by the Academy, right? So you'll hear ACES color, ACES, and OCIO. It's an open color input-output file format concept that we're moving towards, right? Hue correct. I'm going to touch on a little bit of all these today. So we're going to kind of just explore nodes and talk about color and color maths and why and how to get there. Then we're going to have a couple practical examples of color mashing different plates together and try to get those stuff to work together. And a brief discussion on everyone's favorite topic, color correcting on pre-multiplied image, or pre-multiplied images, and how to operate with it and what to look for. Okay, so in general, we start with our most common, multiply. Throwing this to the viewer, I'm going to right mouse click and reset to default, and I'm going to marquee select it and Alt K to clone it. Create a clone. Now you won't have this in your script, but because I made this a little formula of loveliness here, and that's just to show a visualization of the curve, just for expositional visual aids to see, show you indeed what the color math is doing. Right? We've got some of these crazy pipes, 10 and all, and one goes back to multiply. Here. Okay, so multiplication. Synonymous with intensity, value, gain, brightness, you might hear as a terminology for your monitor. Those are all linear multiplication of color or brightness. So what does that mean? Okay, it means that as I brighten things, it goes bright, bright, bright. The brightest brights get exponentially brighter. I can go dark, dark, dark. The hottest hots get darker. But if I go super bright, 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 and that's pretty bright, I can go to 10. Boom, look at that, 10. You can't see much of the highlights of the image. They've gone through the roof, can't see much more detail. However, your deep dark shadows, they're actually fairly intact. Relative to the rest of the image, yes. Your absolute zero values are not affected at all. Not at all. 100. Okay, well, there's still a little lingering of color in here. 100 code value. Bam, right? Very hot day in Florida. Very bright. Why? Because math. Any value, no matter how bright it is multiplied by 0. It is 0. Right? Zero value. Pivots on 0. 1. So what does that mean visually? Let's take a look. If I start to raise it, it's literally changing the orientation of this, pivoting on 0. Brighter, 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 exponentially so. 0 value pivots. It's not affecting absolute 0 at all. This is what's happening to my curve. 0. What is 0? It's your shadows. They don't get affected. Make sense? Okay. Color. So you could affect this here. You could click on 4 and say red, green, blue, and alpha. Okay, great. Or adorable little iWatch color corrector here pops up. And you can start to introduce a color bias. Look at that. All right. So a green bias, a yellow warm bias. All right. Magenta, purple, blue bias, cyan. Right. So you can kind of find your magic. See how it's tearing these primary colors apart. This is a very red warm image. I can't even really see it. It's red, but it's also opposite of green is what? Magenta. So it's also a little purple. So if I come back to here, it's like, hey, guess what? I guessed it. Kind of a purpley red, right? There you go. So you can see it tearing apart. So how am I interacting with this color wheel? Rocking around this diagonally with the arrow is your hue selection. The saturation can be shift locked and constrained. So now I can't change my hue, but I can change my saturation. And again, my blacks are not affected. My absolute blacks and my shadows are not affected. This is perhaps the most neutral and intuitive default for affecting color. Okay, so be aware. I'm affecting all channels. What does that mean? Well, okay, my alpha channel is also being affected. Well, if I say only alpha channel, and okay, none of this would really matter. I'd go back to what? Click here, 4 off, 0. Nothing's happening, or is it? My alpha channel is being affected. Only my alpha channel is being affected. So that's another important thing is what channels am I affecting? What channels am I being constrained by? What am I color correcting? All, by default, means all. RGB and alpha channel as well. Does that make sense? So this being said, you're going to bring in multipass renders. You could be like, color correct my diffuse, color correct my specular, my reflection. All this can be color corrected separately in Nuke because it can call out all those different channels and or AOVs. Also be aware of there's an inverse relationship between color, the hue, and value. So value starts to drop down if you want to reintroduce a certain hue of color. You can. Okay, so there's my latest, greatest, coolest color. Here is my result. So far, so good? Okay, so hopping to add. How is add different? Oh, right mouse click and reset to default. Let's just say I stole multiplication's value, which we know looks like this, and apply it to add. What might that look like? Note that the default for add is 0. So if I click and drag and drop, bam, Retina Blast. Right? I call this one Morning Tang Overload as an Instagram filter, right? Why? Because it's additive color. Synonymous with offset, synonymous with plus. Additive color. So what does that mean? That means that all channels, the entire slope, select delete, select Alt K2 clone, drag clone down here in line, throw it to viewer, boom. Everything, including my black point shadows, has been offset, has been added to in an additive way. This is synonymous with Photoshop tinting. So if you're familiar with the tint of Photoshop, similar type of process. Terminology different, but there you go. So, something that might be more appealing is perhaps taking our value down and our saturation down. Maybe it's that. Keep my red back a little bit. Yeah, that's a little bit more reasonable of an image. Lifting my blacks, colorizing them with a reddish, warmish color. So maybe something like that. Right?
So the fixed shadows more than the highlights, or
Offsets equally. So you see what's happening here? Completely equal. So it's treating the entire image in an additive way. So when you add something by an image by another image, it takes all the values and equally adds them. It doesn't multiply. Multiplier is a scalar effect, right? Add is taking an entire range, highlights, shadows, midtones, and additive process. That's why these are all these curves are all in line. They're offset equally, right? So every part of the range of the image gets treated equally. Highlights, midtones, and shadows. That's additive color. How could gamma be different? Could it ever be different? So let's get viewer. Well, by default, I set it to blue. Right mouse, click it to default. Select it, Alt K to clone. Drag this down to the color hue wheel. So gamma. Gamma, of course, if I crank on it, it darkens. But yet, my highlights are still not dark. Interesting. If I go bright, go super bright, my highlights are still not blown out. Remember, when I was up around 4 in gain, couldn't really tell much of the highlight of the image, just kind of a glowing ball, right? Same is true by low end. My absolute 0 is still not affected. My low end shadows is lifted, but it's not undiscernible. So what's happening with this? It's midpoint correction, right? So I take this and increase or decrease values. It's about the mids only. It's only affecting mids. So what does that mean? It pegs the white point, it pegs the black point. Only my mids are being affected. Midpoint correction. Okay. It can also be introduced into a color bias as well. I can click on the color wheel and, what might that look like? There you go. Purple, the purple. More red, kind of purplish, yes. Gamma. Now, other ways to interact with the curves. You can close this and control click for the giant Uber color corrector. I like this better in a lot of cases because it has a slower rate of attenuation. It also has things like the magenta slider available to you here. HSV wheel, so desired. They have value as well as intensity. They're both multiplications of brightness. There's also an alpha channel slider specific. And you can still deal with the color wheel. You can still magically grab your crayon colors. Let's go with that. Looks pretty sassy. Tobacco Road grade. And again, note that there's also a mix back with all these notes. Mix back of the color. Pretty cool. All right, those are your big three: gain, add, and gamma. Your big three. So far, so good. All right. So, based off of this, there's more consecutive clusters. There is the saturation. Obviously, pretty straightforward. Decrease, increase saturation, but there's different math involved. Maximum. Crank. Pretty straightforward. There's a roll-off contrast operator. It's basically contrast and increase it, but it also has like Uber default nuances, so I can Alt-K this and drag it on down here. Here's a good hotkey for you. While dragging, Shift Control, and it will hockey check out the other node. Knocks it out. Here's my curve. Note the indicative S-curve here. That's your slope. So increased contrast, the rate of pitch. Center pivot, more towards shadows, more towards highlights, or somewhere in between. This right here is the soft clip. If it's off by 0, it's literally black, white, in a very narrow mid-tone range. If I introduce soft clip, you're going to have that subtle, you hear the terminology, a shoulder and or a toe, right? These were old school terminologies, but the terminology is actually here, still utilized here, shoulder, right? The slope, the transition from highs to lows. And what does it look like? It looks like that. It's pretty contrasting. Back off a little bit of my contrast here, just a little bit more soft clip, but contrast. Nice. All right. So along these same lines, all these operators are clustered together in things commonly like the grade node and or the color corrector. Select this and set to default grade node. So grade node by default, we kind of jumped into it day one, right? I had you lifting blacks the very first thing out of the gate with that robot, right? Why? It's the perfect go-to. It literally lifts only the blacks, pivots and doesn't affect the other, right? So atomic level nodes, look out of the gate, we just talked about them. Multiply, offset, that's your additive color, and what else? Gamma, right?
It's a grade combined with mode.
What was that?
Grade combined with mode as well.
Exactly. It clusters them all together in a commonly used node. So all the same and true, like brightness, additive color, gamma, and your mids, right? What else? Lift. We already talked about it. The opposite, right? Only happens to your blacks. White point, black point. Crush. Think of it as expanding and compressing your entire dynamic range, right? So it works in opposite of what you think. So as you increase black point, you're actually crushing the blacks. As you decrease white point, you're actually expanding and brightening the whites. for a brighter contrast ratio. So lift, the opposite of multiply. White point, black point, you're expanding, compressing the entire dynamic range. And then everything else we've kind of talked about in terms of basic math operations. Okay? Pushing some color into it. Maybe brightness overall, do with multiply. Maybe I want to darken my mids with gamma and maybe colorize them, I don't know, a little bit more red in the mids? Sure. How about lift? Give me a little low end lift for my blacks. So maybe that's my grade, maybe that's my look. Alt K. So check this out. There's some crossing going on down here. If I start to introduce even more color, add some blue. Look at that, a little blue lift, a little decrease of red. I'm switching, I'm bending my curves, right? There's some gamma correction. There's a little low end blue lift, right? So it's important to know how these are different. Like it's got that little blue lift in the shadows. It's got the very pink, warm highlights. Right? Pretty cool. So you can get to something that's pretty Instagram-y crazy, right? Kind of like an Instagram filter, right? In fact, you can put a vignette on this pretty easy. You can roll your own Instagram filters. And in fact, that would be your homework this week. So one could be make 3 Instagram filters, right? Take a neutral image and make it look like an Instagram filter, right? Also, please name it cheesily accordingly. Right?
Hashtags.
Which one?
Hashtags.
What's it called?
Hashtag.
Hashtag. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Included.
Hashtag's good. Yeah. Anyone else? Anyone else? The names are ridiculous. It's like Lomofy, right?
Oh, name for the filters.
What's that?
Like name for the filters.
Yeah. So come up with a cheesy name, and it can be entertaining, please. But you see, there's a lot of the same color math that we're talking about today. Like some of these like Instagram filters. And please put a crown on, please, for God's sake, or something. But yeah, so these are happy. Where's the classic? Here's the classic stuff. So like Apollo. Walden, yeah. What is it? I like Pop Rock. Pop Rocks, that's my go-to right there. Like, what's going on with those blacks? So that could be like a lift. Check out the color. You're pushing a primary red. Very lifted. There's no true deep dark blacks. Feels like you chewed on some Pop Rocks with red dye number 6 and your teeth are all red. And that was the experience you were going for. So yeah, take an original image and do this. Toaster. How about those warm toasty blacks, right? It's nice, right? And they're kind of cool. And look at that tripped out red vignette. All right, crazy. Nashville, right? You wouldn't have thought of Nashville, would you? No.
Exactly what Tennessee.
Exactly what? Yeah. Lord Kelvin of the Kelvin clan. Kelvin. What the fuck is that?
Lord Kelvin is a real person.
Wait, I know degrees Kelvin. Yes, and that's why it's warm and toasty, right? Because why? Tungsteny, 3,200 degrees temperature, right? And what would be the opposite? 5,600 degrees blue per Kelvin, degrees Kelvin. The Kelvin scale of temperature, right? So, I mean, it's not as prevalent. Now you just go to a store and say, I want cool light and my LEDs, or I want warm light. But basically, like, when we shot film, you'd have to determine, is it 3,200? Is it 3,200 degrees tungsten correlated for a incandescent globe or tungsten globe, or is it daylight, which is 5,600 degrees, very cool blue, right? Otherwise, your color white balance would be out of whack, right? So yes, early bird. How about that? How about early bird? And then what about saturation, like Sutro, right? Or Gotham for sure. 1977, Faded, yeah. All right. So please come up with some cheesy names. So again, I'm kind of almost there. So let me do a quick and dirty vignette for you. Now, I have a vignette gizmo in my additional free gizmos directory. However, let me show you how to make your own. This is going to be one method. It's going to be in stream. Now you can certainly plug it in to the left or the right of it. Again, it's just a roto meets a color corrector, right? So, O for roto. I'm going to embed this into mask. I'm also going to, maybe I'll do an ellipse. Okay. Work. Come on, work. Thank you. How do you expand the feather? Goes back to last week's exercise. E, yes. How about smoothing? Z. Z. E and Z. Easy, E and Z. All right, so I'm going to fuck this up, but it doesn't have to be perfect here. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, so right now I'm embedding this thing in mask. I'll look under the hood and check out mask. There it is. Make this a little shorter. Yes. Okay, great. So right now it's kind of the inverse of what I want. So again, go back to last week, invert it. So right now the mask is going to take effect on the outside. Cool. I could say feather the crap out of it. Yes. Go big feather. Feather fall off. Sure. And if I even want to do more, B for blur, what channel, mask, and hammer time. Just soft, super softy. Big softy. There's a crazy vignette embedded in mask. Is it affecting RGBA? Hell no. Different. So now, anything I want to do, a multiply, right? So check it out. If I evoke it, math by mask.a, yes. Affecting all channels? Sure. Right? If I start to darken it, whoosh, at the edges. Vignette. There's my vignette. Okay. Make this a little bit more, choke it a little bit more here. Here. What's the question? How to get the mask to work? Well, I employed it, of course. So the default for roto is what? Alpha. So this goes along with the same discussion. I'm color correcting what channel? I'm evoking what channel, right? Mask. Forcibly told it to be mask. Okay, so embedded in mask. Okay, you can literally see it by jumping in and looking at it. And then look, I'm blurring mask. All right, good. And then I'm now evoking it by saying, now grade my RGB images are all masked by mask.a. If I say none, it's completely dark. If I say only where that mask is in play, that's where the effect happens. Literally, it's like a script. It's like it has to be one after the other. If I bypass this, if I had my grade earlier, it's like currently it's already screaming. It's like, hey, there's no mask. I know. Even I plug it in here. Hey, there's no mask. I know, because why? It has to be laid in first, then evoked to call it out. Now I'm happy, right? You have to be in stream and active. It's logic. Like operator, embed it, soften it, call it out.
What if you have like multiple masks? Like you don't know, you can pick which one to use. You have like different masks.
In multipass AOV lights, you're going to have a shit ton of masks. Yes. And you're going to have to be comfortable with switching those channels and looking at those channels and seeing what channels you're calling out and calling and effectively calling. So you could be like, and you could even make your own mask in Nude. Like we, did I demo it with the robot last week? The end of last week, did I show you how to make your car mats? Same idea, right? So let's just say you had like, from here you could be like, O for roto, and let's just hijack another. I'm going to use depth and pretend it's something else, right? And then in depth, I'm going to have, a shape. And I could go back in here, and then in depth, I'm going to have this, right? So, actually, depth's not a good example. Let's make something different like that. I probably have to make my own channel. Let's just say, I could just fake a depth channel. I could be like, here's your soft grad fall off. Sure, oh, look at that, it's space. That's pretty well. Anyways, I can call this out and do another process with it while it's under the hood, like grade by depth for that result. So,
What's it? Make mask A instead of the full mask.
you gotta name it something. That's what.
Next one, mask D or.
It's mask.alpha by default, the way the terminology is. There's only one channel in it, but like I showed you with car masks, you can literally go. When you create a mask, you can. So there's different things. So like if I created car mats and I told it to give it a default of red, green, blue, and alpha channel. So you can embed red, you can embed something in green, you can embed blue, and you can do alpha channel as well. Some of these ones, mask only has one layer, right? Some of these, like we're going to get more deep in this later. For motion vectors, they're mask by motion. Sure, why not? It actually has 4 different types of masks based off of directionality, and they're called UVs. So there's all gonna be different technical ones. Most commonly, you're probably gonna be doing like a shader-based looking RGB map. Like the most common like ID map passes in CG compositing, red, green, blue. Okay, but some are again different based on what their default is. Okay. Anyways, the point is, mask. There you go. To come up with something cool like this. So that's one. You can do an Instagram filter. Cool. The other option is come up with a cool look of your favorite movie. Right. So try to emulate the cool look of your favorite movie and apply that to a color. So it can be a still image of yourself. It can be an image that you download. It can be an image of your dog. Give me 3 different looks of it, and give me what? Like, what's a good color? What's a good looking movie that you've seen recently? Blade Runner. New and or old, yes. So a lot of actually, I just saw a re-release of it, and the color actually did tweak. Director's cut versus final cut, like definitely they different grade look. But yes, there's a lot of really cool blue. There's a lot of interesting, weird, trippy Tyrell golds and heavenly values. There's a lot of lifted blacks in a lot of the images. So you could do a CG Rachel. You push an image in this warm Tyrell type world for sure, right? Or or this, for example. So, look at the black point of this image and how those images being washed, right? What's another good example of a trippy movie? A good cinematic looking movie? Anyone?
Just a little black and white.
A black and white movie? We call it inkwell filter. Good looking black and white. Yeah. I mean, you could. Now, black and white's really tricky. I went to film school and they're like, step one, cinematography, shoot black and white. Why? Because it's harder. Because you have to draw your eye. Color is our friend as artists, right? We get to say like, hey, look at me. I'm a bright red. Like any color that really draws attention to itself.
Pick any famous noir film.
Any famous noir film, because black and white, then it becomes like, how do I make cool composition to direct your eye in black and white? Think of like even horror, like Caligari, in a black and white cinematography. It's kind of a different critter. If I could spell cinematography, Graspy, yes. Spelling optional with an M in there. There. Show me some images. This is when you get artists making film. Let me paint some fucking shadows in here, man. Like, yeah, what is that image about in black and white? But notice how like high contrast images they're using it to really direct your eye. Like it's all about leading values and lines, especially in something like this black and white. Here's a hardcore compositional build, and a lot of it's set design related. But I just adore this German expressionist genre, but film noir as well. I mean, if you want to do that, I would tend to tell you to make shapes to really retool the look, because it's all about high contrast and what's the focus of this image? Well, let me shine a light on it to tell you what I want you to look at. Bam, right there, right? Silhouette, okay, high contrast image. So you don't have that conceit of color to say, hey, look, these characters are wearing a red dress. It's like, give me every rule of composition and guiding lines to draw your eye in film noir, exactly. The cinematography and just compositional framing, it's a great study because it's really a lot more difficult because you don't have color to dictate. Boring black and white is boring for a reason. No, it's not really pushed to compositional. Like how about this in terms of composition, light, value, and breaking lines to dictate what you're supposed to look at. Pretty genius stuff, done right. Citizen Kane, right? Let me illuminate, literally illumination as into a character's psyche as well as visual illumination. So obviously a very different look. How about something with color? Avatar? Okay, Avatar's... Yeah, let's see. Let's take a look at Avatar. I'm going to go with some more... Avatar... images. Yeah, okay. Cools. It's a cool Navi world. A lot of this is and this became a very popular MCU palette as well afterwards. You see this in Infinity War and also Infinity War here. This palette. I mean, you could definitely push something similar to this world. It's obviously very CG controllable, but yeah, it's an interesting. There's some interesting looks. This is kind of a nice one. Kind of more of a cyany. There's some lifted values here, some lifted black point haze. Kind of cool. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting exploration. All right, I'm gonna give you some choices. How about Matrix? Yeah. So when you think Matrix, what's the first color that comes to mind? Green, right? So, but it's not like when you get such a monochromatic palette like this, it becomes like every small little nuance push becomes pretty drastic. So it's like, oh well, it's super sickly green, or sometimes the office interiors are all somewhat yellow, right? And some of the other ones, like your black points, are actually going more cyan in a lot of the images. So there's some interesting exploration with this as well. Again, very monochromatic palette, but also very, very unique. Right? Anything else? Mad Max. I'm gonna go with Fury Road because that's more of a contemporary. The old one, the original is not as stylized. So obviously this kind of indicates more of the classic cyan. Thank you, Michael Bay. Cyan orange to cyan gray that we love so much. But it actually works great in this movie because deserts are pretty blocked by nature, right? So you're really pushing a lot of extreme color into your deep, your blasé desert, and really popping some extremely lovely saturated daylight. So this perfect California cyan blue, again, properly exposed, you can kind of get some of those ranges. But yeah, you're going to be hard pressed to find that kind of turmeric dirt all over the world. But yeah, it's a very specific world. And again, they're getting certain frequencies, kind of like what we're going to talk about in the color corrector, and pushing them in the different directions, right? Based on ranges, based on the color that's already in that image. So this is a good one as well. God, even the fires up north too. Same, like look at the redding and all that. It looks pretty cool, right? Looks pretty warm and hellishly cool. What else? How about something on the other end of the spectrum where it's almost little color, like which one? Dark Knight. Yeah. Two different grades. Interesting. Purple lift, cyan lift. Yeah, pretty gritty. Explorations of monochromatic, 300. Movie. This is Sparta and grading, right? Like, how far can you push color before it becomes black and white, right? And then how do you attempt focus to control focus of image? So with this, you may want to pull a saturation out in the beginning. You want to attenuate that down, kind of give it a value, and then try to get into that range, right? So this one's a good one too. There's a lot of choices, so come up with it. Tell me what the movie is, and it could be a neutral image. It could be class renders as well. You want to take renders from other classes, push them in different directions, good to go, right? Saving Private Ryan, how about that? So obviously, this is actually photochemically bleach bypass process. So by default, you're going to get these high contrast, blocked up blacks, and a very little amount of chroma in the color coming through the image. So almost pure black and white. Hey, Fury, I worked on this one. So very monochromatic and high contrast as well. Right, so contrast shifts. So there's some good options. Okay, so hopping back in it. So let's just say I wanted, I could pull some saturation. So pull some saturation out this before I affected it. So tap saturation. So pull the innate color back out a little bit more. Now it becomes much more of a monochromatic image, right? Okay, next, kindred spirit, color corrector. So what does color corrector have to offer? So here, right mouse click, set to default. Okay, so out of the gates of the things we were still talking about, again, those same atomic level nodes, gain, offset, that's your plus, all right? Gamma is gamma, right? But it also adds, two more. One is a saturation slider, and one is a contrast slider. So, okay, cool. Okay, I know what contrast does. I know what saturation does. Now, what else is different about it? Ranges. It color corrects in specific ranges. So what does that mean? It kind of like it leverages black point, white point, and shadow, right? So you can say master, or shadow, or midtones, and highlights. So you go look at it, and you're like, okay, so what are those ranges? Well, you can come to the ranges slider and say, test me. When you toggle this on, it shows you, this is what I'm considering white point. This is what the grays are the middle point values, and the blacks are dark, right? Oh, makes sense, right? So if I want to change my contribution of highlight, I can say expand, right, into the highlights, or not, right? Yes.
So if you don't want your mask to be affected, let's say for like color correct, you don't want a mask, should you put it before the mask, like on the notes, or you put it after the
If you don't want it to be what?
like mask be affected, like mask will show up later on. Let's say one mask will show up for like vignette, but for color correct, that one the whole image will be shown.
I'm not sure if I follow. I mean,
Can mask only affect specific things, or it has to affect?
anything that you can call out a mask, if it's in your stream, you can do it. I mean, there's a couple different ways to do it. So the other way of doing this, of course, is the rotospline. Oops. Control Shift X, and then masking by this. So let's just say, turn this off. I'm going to create a shape and plug this in here, or it can be inside the stream as well. And say, okay, whatever my color correction effect is going to be, master gain. It's only going to be in that mask. Right? Is that your question?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Where do you click it? On the right.
so everything in Nuke has a mask. Well, almost everything. Yeah. So, C. Input, output, mask. Right? Blur. Input, output, mask. Right? So it can be internal. It can be an external mask. Okay. So only where this mask is where the color correction effect. Okay. If not, the entire image goes blah, really bright. So, however, I have ranges at my discretion here. So let's just say it's like, hey, these pure whites are great, but it'd be cool if they had more color in there. Well, I can go and say, well, show me the white point of the image. That would be highlights. What's the highest of the highlight? Okay, gain. What if I darken value and then push some red and drop some yellow, drop some blue to get some yellow. There you go. I'm affecting only the highlights and warming them up. Okay. What? Based on the ranges of the image. And as I said, I can say, okay, more contribution into the mid-tone clouds and whatnot, right? So see it spreading out into the other ranges of the image, right? If as so desired, if need be, right? Same thing on the other end of the spectrum. Shadows. What's a good low-end operator? Maybe offset. So if I take my shadows and say offset and give it a good crank, hey, look, I'm only hitting my black point. And let's, trip out those and make them pop rock red. Right there. Right, nice. Shadows only, highlights only. Midtones, what's a good midtone operator? Gamma. Right, lift up. Maybe I will warm up, make magenta. Okay, maybe that's a look. Overall, crank on saturation. Now we're talking increased contrast. There we go. Offset to block out my blacks. There you go. There's a crazy kind of Ektachrome-y looking image right there, right? So again, I can push ranges in different directions and kind of come up with a unique different look, right? So adding contrast sliders, adding saturation sliders. Getting it? Cool.
Which one would you like edit to like kind of change the point of the shadow? Because for like
In color corrector, you're going to go with shadows.
okay.
And then the low end type of mathematical operators are what? What's a good low end? Or I chose additive color, right? So it's going to take the entire thing. I love lift because lift is kind of like an arrow of specificity that says only the deepest, darkest blacks, a little bit of the mids, and none of the white point am I going to affect, right? But that lives in grade, right? I usually use grade a lot more than I use color corrector, personal choice, but I mean, play around with everything. Today you can play around with today, and again for homework you can play around as well, and kind of come up with what you like, right? Kind of feel what you like. Color grade by curves, anyone? Anyone like curves? That would be a color lookup. Color, and again, it's all the same math we've just been talking about. Color lookup. It's like, what's going on with the curves? Okay, well, that makes sense. Color math lookup is also basically curves, like Photoshop curves. But these curves, again, mathematically, we're used to. Let's make an indicative S-curve, right? So here's master, there's red, green, blue. Master, I'm going to select it, Alt-Control, and give it a little roll off on the highs and popping those blacks and the lows. My slope, if I start to increase or decrease, this is gamma, right? Increase, decrease, right? If I, the way this works too, the first direction you work is constrained and I can't go left and right. If I grab it and go left and right first, I can't go up and down, right? Just default constraints. If I want to free fly, control, baby, control, right? I hit control, now I can go up, down, left, right, whatever the hell I please, right? And then tweak out my curve, right? So a very high contrasty indicative S curve there to get more poppy, broad, hot whites, deep dark shadows, and boom, there you go. Now, let's just say, okay, meanwhile in red, I'm going to come here and now do, again, rock and roll, Alt-Control, hotkey. In the mids, what is this? This would be gamma. This is kind of a gamma curve, literally by default. Warming up on my mids, not affecting the blacks, not affecting the whites. Gamma. Color grade by curves. What if, for whatever reason, I wanted to lift my black point and make it green? Look at this is a lift. Look at that, just hitting the blacks. Again, very subtle. Give it like that gnarly green little lift right there. There you go. Color grade by curve. All right, I'm going to hop into a couple more things here, and then we're going to start playing around with stuff. Additional one-offs and oddities, right? There's a little bit of everything to play around. Histograms, if you like them, I'm not really a huge fan. Hue shift, I mean, most of my time is really in grade and some one-offs. Saturation, roll-off contrast is pretty awesome. There's more technical things like clamping and or toe, soft clip. There's a posterize if you want to posterize stuff. Or you can literally make it. Literally, a posterize is taking your midpoint and giving it a pyramid, right, of a curve. And that would be a posterization color. Again, a lot of these math operators are good to go. Just a couple one-offs that we use all the time, which are awesome, include, find an example of it, Buddha and Hue Correct. Double click and set this to default. So Hue Correct is awesome. We use it today in the advanced class to do some not only just suppression work, but some warming up of stuff and as a food product, and pushing it in different directions. So hue correction is great. It's kind of intended as it would indicate to correct hue. In what way? Most commonly default blue suppression for blue screen and green suppression for green screen. So this is a good example of a Buddha on blue. if I say, so the interface is a little confusing by default because it's like, I'm just here, and I'm not going to tell you what I do until you click on something. Right? Oh, there's a curve. All right, I see it. So blue suppression gives you a curve, and what this is saying is like, in the range of hue, how do I want to affect this image? So my goal is blue suppression. In what part of the range of hue do I want to affect it? Well, blue, of course, right? So check this out. If I control click and sample, it gives me feedback and says, okay, this is where that blue lives in terms of hue. The yellow line across is where it lives in terms of value. Okay? So if I take blue suppression and decrease it, down, down, down. If I go too far, it's going to start to go yellow, right? Because color opposition. Right? But then take saturation also on primary blue and go down, 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 down. So specific is this hue range that the kindred adjacent cyan and green are not affected. Because why? Because they're on this shoulder here. But pretty cool and pretty effective. That's hue correction. Okay, so grab some of these images and play around with color if you haven't been doing it already. Okay, 820. Give you a couple minutes to play around with it. Let me talk about just interactivity with it again, just briefly. So, sure, I'm gonna throw a grade. So, again, old school color wheel control. If you want to pop this guy up. Temperature. Hey, Lord Kelvin in the house, right? Warm, cool, temperature. Right? Not just for heat anymore, not just for hot LA summers. Could be for degrees of Kelvin temperature. Magenta versus green slider. An intensity, aka a multiplication of value. Not to be confused with intensity, which basically is the same. Value and intensity. The hue wheel to rock all the way around different hue ranges. Saturation, pretty self-explanatory. Increase or decrease saturation. Value, this determined was brightness. More or less red, more or less green, more or less blue. And of course, an alpha value slider as well. So that's the old school one. And of course, crayon colors. Yeah, love that. Awesome. Gotta have those. Right? And good to go. Now, what I also like about it is you can come in here and say, this is great, saturation. What if I want to, increase red? Jump in this box, increase. If I want to go lesser, I go to the right. Lower. See how it goes smaller integers? When you're really nuancing color, and we're going to do this today, it's going to be great. So that, and the color wheel. I don't know. Anyone having problems with color correctors? No. Probably pretty good. I'll stop talking. Play around for a couple minutes here. I'll stretch, and then we'll get into some more practical applications of color. Questions?
About how much one of the
All right. I'll walk over. So if you add glow right now without even asking, just plug it in, right? And go. And then so it's going to blue or tell it to mask by none. So by default, so hit D. Can I say what? And on. So you're going to hit D again. So in your ability to constrain it, you have tolerance. Intolerance and tolerance. So if you give this thing a crank and say, go big, do the shit out of it, right? So then you have a huge amount of glow. This is size, right? So it's glow here. So you obviously want only the highlights. In fact, how do you do that? Tolerance. Tolerance blooming everywhere. Maybe that. Oh, only right there. So basically, it's like a luminance key for diffusion. So it's literally like a luminance key. When you get the key, it's by increasing this, you're excluding the threshold of the lower, darker values. If it was 0, again, everything's going to get selected. If I increase my tolerance, it's only the hottest hots are going to get. Well, it's both brightness and or size. So it's like brighter, hotter. Size of expansion. Basically the bloom and fall. Brightness. So there's a bunch going on. So play with it and learn from it. All right, show me art, man. Damn it. Show me art. Play around with the images, just make color to it. So again, in today's footage folder, I'm going to go with all. Show me art, be creative. Now, damn it! Blood dragon. There's some magenta in the dragon. Some blood dragon colors. Now keep in mind you can isolate by color, color curves. You can photo shapes. You can Luma key stuff. So let's play with this fish for a second. There's a lovely tool that's not so lovely. I'd rather key stuff than deal with this hue shift. But let's just say if I wanted to remap a color to something else. Where's Fishy Fish? Where are you at, Fishy Fish? There you go. Here. So there's a hue shift. It's kind of shit, I think. Maybe I just don't know how to use it well, but I never get any good results. But in theory, you do something along the lines of say, hey, I want to take this lovely bright primary color here, input grays, hue, rock around the hue wheel. Actually, this is hue shift. I want, what do I want? I want, not this one, right? But hue shift, the HSV tool. That one's fairly self-explanatory. HSV tool is the one I was thinking. You just basically map source color and say, well, say you're something different, right? So map blue to magenta or red or green. It's just that I could never really get the lovely soft follow-off that I'd expect to see and or want to see. But you can make some electric video looking fish, right? I would rather do something along the lines of well, that's where keying comes in. And again, we're going to get into keying and we're going to do a whole day of keying. But you can do a keyer. And Tim, you're asking about like luminance, right? Like, what's a luminance key doing? What's tolerance doing? You're doing this. By cranking and excluding, that's my tolerance. I'm saying only the hottest hots get the effect. What's the effect? A glow. So I'm saying only the hottest hots of the fish fin, that bright yellow, that's the only thing that's going to glow, right? Or in my case, maybe to affect color. So this is a luminance example based on what? The brightest part of the specular image is going to be opaque and the darker values are going to be unaffected, right? So crush and exclude, great. You can also invert this relationship. Look at that, negative fish, yeah. Right? So only these dark values will be affected. But what I'm looking for with this is what? Something along the lines of maybe a blue keyer, right? These guys are going to be affected. Not invert, but this. Exclude my ranges, so only the blues get affected. Cool. You mentioned it. What could I do? Erode and blur, right? Expand and contract my matte. And or blur. I'll just be specific about it. My alpha channel. Soft, soft, soft. Oh, now we're talking the tools of trade. So let's just do something here like saturation. Drag. It is chilly ass cold, but it keeps me awake. So I want to what? Expand aka dilate my ranges, right? And maybe soften them a little bit more. Right? And then G for grade, for example. Dropping dot. Push them in another direction, right? So here, maybe it's this. It's purple, it's yellow, it's blue. Right? And maybe I can garbage mask out a little bit of this, but there you go, you get the idea, right? So kind of the same idea. Yes?
Are there any nodes, other nodes that pertain to like a light, like a lens flare or something like that?
There are, in fact, lens flares. It's called flare. Yeah. They're not as sexy, awesome as you'd like, the default one. Yeah. You go straight for the lens flares, man. Fucking lens flares, and camera shake, and that's fucking rock and roll, baby. Yes, there are lens flares. Let's give it a good. If I want to put a lens flare on this, it literally is not good. But flare, so draw flare, and it's just like there's just better stuff out there. So look, there's a lens flare. By default, it's some weird egg. Okay, great. And then you can say like presets. Make it something more interesting, like a multi-penta or a sparkle ball. And of course, it's, there it is. Make it sparkle balls. They're not great, and you really have to go through a lot of hoops. I mean, it works. I do like multi-penta as a good starting point. This guy here, but you can barely see it. You really have to do a lot of stuff. If you want overt over the top, I got the magic for you, man. Check out this. I've got all plugins and updates. Now, these are all Nukipedia specialty items. So you can become a member of Nukipedia and download the world of awesomeness. There's a bunch of over-the-top stuff. So, Nukipedia. So if you guys are doing some sci-fi over-the-top stuff, I got some magic for you, man. Nukipedia. It's a great repository of all things gizmos. Yeah. And I've downloaded a lot of these, and they're in my own directory, but you can also make your own account and then do this. We make our own. We start making our own gizmos in the advanced class. Stuff I've downloaded, they're really heavy as all freaking hell. Update. But Flare Factory, yeah, boom. It's going to be magical, man. So it's going to take a dramatic pause because it's so freaking heavy. This is kind of out the scope. I want you to play around with color, but yes, the answer is yes. There's a shit ton of stuff. There's Flare Factory and there's K-Lens. It's called. There's a couple, but play with color first. Lens flares are easy. Optical flares are in fact available. So if you're a big After Effects fan of those plugins, I actually have them on a Mac box. They are really well designed. I mean, they're all over the top, but you can make them more tame. Where they really shine is actually in the 3D engine of Nuke, and that you can literally link them to all your lights. So when the times I have to do stuff, like I've done campaigns for the NBA, like, hey, do a giant CG stadium for the NBA for every fucking division in Fox. I've done that as a job. So they're gonna want lens flares. They're gonna be like, it's this, and everything has a fucking lens flare on it. It's just the aesthetic of sports, right? So I've done that before. So check out this nuttiness. First of all, the names alone, right? Abrams Squared, right? Wait for it. Yes. That would be J.J. Abrams. This is a subtle romantic love story between two people with a lens flare of sci-fi magic anamorphicness. Yes, a J.J. Abrams square. Now, these names should be your Instagram filter. Purple Steel, Serenity, Cat Eye. Or porn names, yeah. Desert Sun. How about, what does Serenity look like? I want to feel Serenity. Oops, reset all. No. Serenity. Configure. Okay, show me. do it. So there's a lot to play around with. So these are all in my directory. You can also download your own. Put them in your z.nuke directory. Oh, I might have hosed it. And you can go to town with it. There's we explicitly do a couple of them in an advanced class where we track in based off a 3D engine lens flares and try to keep them more subtle. But there's some more over the top stuff if you're looking for that for whatever reason. But you follow up after class or out of class. Play with the color for a couple more minutes. If this doesn't come back, I'm going to have to crash it. Fucking lens flares, man. But there are some good tools. Stop. 8:30. Are you going to crash? Oh, Serenity finally showed up, and man, it was worth the fucking wait. Look at that. Iridescent fairy magic, dude. Attach that to your wand and have a party on the weekend, right? Look at that shit. I think that's an anime special. They get kind of heavy, and they're just a little bit over the top. A little bit. Serenity. Okay. Meanwhile, color. So you guys have played around with the color. I'm gonna back out of this guy. Clear. Man, that's one hell of a lens flare there. All right, so here. Oh, great. Little crashy crash. Fine, be that way. Here. Clear. All right, let's talk pre-mult fun briefly. Color blob. What? No. Really? Is anyone having problems with the color, or it makes sense? Pretty straightforward, right? All right. So a quick brief discussion about pre-multiplied color. Who? What? You don't have to play around with it, but it's called Blob. It's in the Blob folder.
I opened that one up and it was like errors.
Oh yeah.
Maybe I just took it from the wrong place.
Oh, if you open the script, I mean, so it lives. I mean, you don't have to, but it's in today's directory called, bathroom and blob and all that fun. Yeah. So, what I would like to show you is the fact that this blob is what we call a pre-multiplied image. Well, why? Pre-multiplied with what? Alpha, right? Alpha channel. So why do we have an alpha channel in general? What's an alpha channel for? Anyone? Bueller? A synonymous term with masking. So it says that my blob can exist over something else, like, a bathroom floor, for example, right? However, what's unique about this alpha? Semi-transparent, different densities of alpha channel, right? So if I scrub these values of alpha channel get close to purely opaque, right? So kind of doubling up like a Fresnel effect. And some of these are about 20% transparent, about 0.8 alpha. So there's different densities of the alpha channel. It's got some varied translucency of the blobby bitty dude, right? So he's a pre-multiplied image. Right? The terminology might get you a little like, what? So think about like actually, I like the iconography. It's kind of useful. If I look at, merging here, and say unpremult. It says what? Divide alpha. All right. And then premult. Multiply alpha. Right? What we talked about today is like we multiply any value by 0, right? It becomes 0. This is same is true of RGB values, right? So if I embed an alpha channel, and there you go, where it's white it exists, where it's black it's transparent, then I premult an image, that's a premultiplied image. Right? Where you have an alpha channel, it's white, you exist. Where you don't, it's transparent. Same is true of this guy. Semi-density. So the rule is unpremult by alpha channel and grade is normal. So it can be as easy as this. I'm going to right mouse click and reset the default. So if I forget these rules and I start to lift, for example, we talked about this day 1, and I'm going to lay this over a background. I'm going to start to throw and spill lifting, contaminating my background all around, right? You kind of don't want that. You want your background to be unaffected. Always simply click unpremult by alpha channel by default. So now I can lift to my heart's content, no effect whatsoever. I can, colorize. Right? I can gamma correct. Right? I can pop my whites. Get contrast here with my blacks. Maybe midtone gamma. Maybe I'll red them up a little bit. So let's just say that's my magical grade. Note that it's transparent. There's torn pixels at the side because of resolution issues, right? So that's kind of the way that Nuka magically deals with it, right? So it's breaking frame, these pixels get spread. An easy way to get rid of it is to apply the transform. Transform says what? Black outside, and that will alleviate those issues. As I position my guy. All right, so let's just say that's my magical grade. Well, I did it correctly because I told to unpremult by alpha channel. So you'll see the iconography change to RGB divided by alpha channel. Unpremult by alpha channel. If I turn this off, the math is all different. The color corrections will not be mathematically correct. They will not look correct. And you run the risk of getting unpremultiplied errors. What that means is your edges are going to be more darker or lighter than they should be in terms of your grade, right? So you always want to unpremult by alpha channel, right? Lift. Check this out. So you can just literally click that on and you're good to go, right? Or you could explicitly go through this multi-step process, right? So basically it's this. Unpremult. Let's just delete this. Unpremult your image. So here's a premultiplied image being unpremultiplied. This becomes that. So notice how the image changes though, like the alpha channel, for example, like these partial densities in his butt, for example, in the joint. See these darker, more transparent areas get filled out or treated like they're flat, like you don't have an alpha channel in them all. It's kind of divided out, right? That's what you want. You're also going to see like your texture start to splay at the edges. Looks like it's fucked up and broken. It's not. Why? Because what dictates the edge? The alpha, an anti-alias alpha. You need to have this texture go out beyond it a couple pixels. Why? To accommodate for anti-aliasing of your alpha channel, right? You want that sub-pixel fall off at your edges. That's why you're like, oh, I got all this chunky, sparkly bits on my CG render. Well, you're never going to have it because you're going to pre-mult it when it goes back over, right? So it'd be unpremultiplied. You saw how the density changed, right? All these partial density transparency things got treated as flat or no alpha channel, right? Then grade is normal, whatever you want to come up with for your fantastic grade, right? And then if I put this back over right now and I merge, capacity. Let me just split this pipe off here. I still have kind of a chunky, crappy edge until I yet again pre-molt the result. Pre-molt. See how there's a shift there? That would be also correct. Unpremult, grade is normal, and re-premult. Or, you know, unpremult by alpha channel. This guy, contrast, transform, another different look. Make sense? Pretty easy ritual. Just unpremult by alpha channel, you're good to go. And you'll avoid all those problems. Cool? All right. You guys need a break? Hell yeah, you do. All right, so take a quick break. When we come back, tease it, we'll do a color matching exercise that will be taking two different plates and magically blending them together. So the idea would be that we have a Florida Master Shot, or MS, for medium shot, and a CU, which has a hurricane, but it's piss yellow and jaundice. So we're going to take that smaller one in, magically color correct it, and scale it into position. All right, take 10. 8:46. Come back at shy of 9, and we'll get into this exercise.
too many jobs to start. I'm a 3D modeler. I'm an animator. I'm a compositor. I'm a director. I'm a cameraman, and I'm a novelist. Huh?
This is going to be 4-hour HD class.
Huh?
Director?
Probably, yeah, if we're all working together to figure out what we're doing.
I'm sure. This is just something really interesting.
I think it's that last one that's the biggest hit.
Why?
Being a novelist, writing a book. Well,
Are you developing your plans?
that's what we have to do in language arts too. Write a story. Short story, novel, or a screenplay, something.
What's the Mad Max part?
Anything. Just come up with a story and start writing it. It's pretty hard. You do 750 words a week.
Yeah, for 10
weeks.
It's how many years?
So about 2 pages, 2.5 pages.
That doesn't sound like, you know, the workload is not like, you should always wait some this.
It's kind of what you do. You spend the first week coming up with ideas of pitch, and then you pitch them, and then you guys take a watch, and then you start writing.
You guys do what I got. Besides that, you don't want to be replicating anything.
Yeah, I know what I need to do. See, so hoping that just sort of falls into place.
So fun. Oh wait, so you got this?
Pretty much. Yeah.
So
This is exactly what we did in the second class. We came in with 5
That's
different
so cool.
Scalper. They were actually a great scalper in class.
That and my dog.
Yeah, I think it's a good class.
For a hairless cat, very quick. You know what the homework was? Last week,
I
we
love
were
it
on
so
site
much.
writing the first 750 words.
Yeah, you know, it's funny.
Read all
Some
of
people
Shawshank
say,
Redemption.
"You're not ever smiling, you're never thinking about your face all the time."
You have to go there and read.
Yeah, like if I see her face, I just realize her face doesn't ring until it was a teacher. And sometimes maybe she'll be like, "You're sure this," but it's like,
I don't agree.
it's her smile.
Oh, that's so funny.
And it's not her smiling, it's maybe like, I think she had a
I mean, I don't know. It was pretty hard. I got it done, but it was pretty hard.
She's like ahead of me. I think she's like life feel like, you know, like pretty almost just like so pick her up.
I've got 2 pages of really shitty stories.
Yeah, so I think she's in her mother and because her hair isn't wavy, but it's very like coarse and it's like she's really get mad. Yeah, so yeah. Yeah, that depends on you for you.
Trying to figure out a name.
Oh yeah, that's probably the hard part. She literally first she came her name up.
Go say it, you learn money.
Exactly. Like, oh, look at you doing that. But,
Is it a he or a she? Yeah, the he. Yeah. So far, the best nickname speaks yeah, dude. I was gonna go like 10 pages. I was gonna go like the totally other way with it. Go with like alpha secret. Something like that.
does it have sweaters on it?
Yes.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
and their body heat runs like right there, it's hotter than yeah.
It's really temperature.
Yeah, it looks like it's really hot. It's like she's
Yeah, I'm sure it makes sense if we're always trying to work hard. That's interesting.
Oh, and then I got 2 more name ideas. Mr. Reality and the Cats.
Okay, I made a chicken name for going to have. It was like,
These marks can start for the
like,
boys
supposed to be like,
Oh, that's good. Like every name dog.
what's the full name of that?
Cat people hurt.
That's crazy. You contrast to my cousin's
Oh, it's up a little. You know, I had a standard poodle for years. I don't know. They're so smart.
Oh yeah, they're so weird.
A lot of people don't realize exactly how smart poodles are.
Yeah, the shortest couple are like, yeah, like as far as like tricks go, like
Yeah, it's a border collie one and poodles too. I think.
yeah, and then I think German Shepherd too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. My poodle was a shepherd doodle, which is a German shepherd. Yeah, they turned into a German shepherd.
My sci-fi input is going to be Lando Calrissian. My sci-fi input is going to be Lando Calrissian.
Oh, that's not you would think that
Lando works fine for me.
that's over here. I'm not like a fan.
We can't wear sweaters yesterday.
Mine has more strength. That's more poodle than that. Mine is more That was back in Texas though.
Somebody left
Yeah.
Yes, there we go. That's right. That's right. But then it's left foot like it's really left foot like the rest of us. So that's smart people, including me.
and then some are. This is the smallest class right there. What class? Regards to two that classes we have about this. Only two of us think that figured that out. Come on, almost like standing like you're already thinking. And the other two class members were late today, so I thought I was going to be a little low. I think I heard they got like so you keep
It's just like, all right, you just go, I'll be like,
But yeah, same
so they just had like super stressed out and like go stand up.
Do you have a dog?
in Texas I do. We're talking about just different noodles and stuff.
Oh yeah?
I got a cat today. That's a start.
Oh, you got a cat today.
Yeah, I got a Spitz.
Nice.
Yeah, a little bowl.
I got a German Shepherd I inherited today.
Oh, nice. I was just talking about my old dog was like a Shepherd Doodle. German Shepherd and a standard poodle mix.
I've seen one of those at the dog park.
Yeah.
Pretty tall.
Yeah.
Chelsea's pretty cute. She's normally pretty well. I might bring her to class if no one freaks out.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I love all animals.
Yeah. If she has a good run, she's pretty good after. She's pretty chill afterward. She's standard shepherd, so any noise she'll bark at. It's good. A year. Pup, yeah. Bark at food?
Yeah.
Or bark for food?
We'll look at food and bark at it.
Yeah, my dog would be like, just sit there and like, hey, I'm at the refrigerator, and they'll be like, woof. And just fucking little, like, let me woof.
My dog had
Pretty good.
Especially cheese.
Yeah, cheese is big for the dogs. Yeah. Chelsea likes her cheese. All right. Okay, dog talk. All right.
Sorry.
I'll bring her in. She asked today. She's looking at me going, "Can I go?" Yeah, looking all guilty. All right, so we're going to take this smaller background. So this is going to, not only will it be color, but it'll be a couple of good ideas to get used to aligning different images. So out the gate, we're going to take this image, embed a roto. Here we go again, we're talking about it, pre-multiplication. So apply color of magicness, pre-mult that result, right? So where yes. It's in the folder called Florida Match. Florida Match. Lesson 3, footage, Florida CU and Florida MS. So, right? MS and CU. We're going to get there, don't worry. Alpha, multiply, pre-multiplication. Okay.
You want us to do this with you?
Yeah, let me broad brush it, give you the lay of the land, then I'll do explicitly, step by step, and there's no way that you'll get lost. It'll be awesome. Now, there's a couple gotchas with here. One is that this has an alpha channel in it by default displayed. You're like, okay. So when I go to, I put a roto on it. So here's a roto, and I'm going to look at it. I'm going to articulate an edge. It's going to be relative to what? To this hurricane, because I'm going to extract that hurricane. You're like, well, where is this new roto at? Well, you don't see it here because it's a solidly opaque alpha channel already, right? So I have to turn it off, in essence, right? So I'm going to show you multiple ways to do that once we get into the script. So lastly, we're going to take this default insert, translate it and squish it so it's stretched on Y. You need to squash it. Filter it with a little bit of softness here, and then merge it back over. So that's the lay of it. It's pretty straightforward, but I want you to take simple mantra of red, green, blue color, and look at it and say, okay, this is where I start. Where do I go? What do I have too much of? What do I need more of? And find that RGB balance and get there. Struggle with it by eye. And I'll tell you some cheat codes for color sampling and kind of to get there pretty easy. And then I'll show you a tool set that automates the process, which is pretty trippy, pretty cool. So let's give it a shot. So I'm going to say here and clear it out. Got multiple scripts open. I'm going to kill this one. No. Whew. All right, so R to read. And bring in what? Bring in Florida CU and Florida MS. Open. Marquee select. L to layout, throw this to the viewer. One is the hurricane, the other is the background. Okay, so just for the sake of it, set your globals. It's not vital, but get used to it. 1920 by 1080, that's what the software tells me. Yes, that's what I'm working on. Sweet. All right, what else? So now, this whole turning off the roto. So let's start by just articulating a roto edge. So with it selected, O, and I'm going to choose a B-spline. Why? Because it's a big soft curve. Right? That's kind of what this is, a big soft curve. I also want to retain Lake Okeechobee, this big rounded. Any Floridians? No one claiming it? All right, good. I've heard this shape is called Lake Okeechobee. But it's a good reference for what is circular versus square, and it's slightly stretched, so we'll use this as a good landmark. So I'm going to delineate an edge, big soft curve. I'm going to soften the edge. E to expand feather. Okay. So now, when I go to pre-multi, I should expect it to punch it out, but again, I've already just established that it has an original alpha channel in it. So here. So how do I turn this off? Let's talk about that. Let me run you through the ways. talk about channel management, all that fun stuff. So of course, you probably look to the channel operators to find what you want. And yes, look at that, remove. All right. But if I sneeze, listen, and say remove, it's going to remove all by default. And here it is, remove. Bam. Okay. All. Well, that's a bit extreme, but okay. The alpha's gone, and so is everything else. All are gone. So you only want to remove what? Alpha. You want to not keep, but remove not all, but alpha. So that would solve your problem. Remove. That's one. Okay. Two. Our friend shuffle. So channel shuffle. Okay, remember this from the robot ID mats. So a couple things about the shuffle. You're like, oh god, this note again, right? So
Did you get rid of it?
I did. I'm going to show you 3 different ways, and I'm going to tell you. You can choose any one you want, but I'll show you probably the most efficient, and that'll be the last. Yes, I'm going to make you jump through hurdles, but I'm just showing you different ways, getting used to channel operators. So red in is red out. Green in is green out, blue in is blue out, and alpha in is also the same default alpha out until what? I tell it to not be that. I could be, the red luminous channel, the green luminous channel, the blue luminous channel, or the default was alpha, or alpha could be solidly black. There you go. Pre-multiply. So just map alpha to solid black and you're done. That's 2. Third and perhaps most proficient. Inconspicuously hidden in all roto nodes is the ability to replace. Hover over the tooltip. Clears channels to black before drawing into them. Well, that's exactly what we want. Boom. Replace. Right? Right there in front of your face, like hiding it. What the fuck is this thing about? Replace? Boom. Draws channels to black before drawing into them. It's a good one. There you go. So now, I'm going to start hounding you guys about putting your toys away, kids, right? So what does that mean? That means that your roto spline is going to fight you. If you don't, if you're done with this, put it away, right? If I go and say this, shift select that, M for merge, you're going to want to see the edge minus the curve, the spline anyway, right? So, kill. Go away. Done with it. Also note that it's going to be beneficial for you to do a comparison buffer between the original Florida MS and your final comp. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. The original, where it's at. Right?
When you put merge, what part would you merge? Pre-multiply and read to?
Yep. With a hierarchical relationship where what is the foreground? The one with the alpha channel. So what would that be?
Read one.
This one, yep. A over B, because why? It has an alpha channel. If I inverted this relationship, it was the inverse, shift X, goes away. Background is over the foreground versus foreground over background. Is everyone able to do this? Have this result?
I'm having a bit of trouble figuring it out.
Now! No, what's the problem?
I think I just haven't set something up right. I don't have it like masked out fully. Like I have the roto set up, but I don't.
This guy? Replace.
Got it.
There it is.
Can you invert the replace or select outside?
What?
Can you invert the replace?
Why, yes. In fact, you can. And thanks for asking, so I can tell you more. Not inverted. Invert. Not inverted. Mask is outside, mask is inside. Inversion. Get inverted. A, B. A, B. Cool? So now we need a way to scale it, translate it, reposition it, and squash it on Y. That would be called a transform node, living under the transform whole directory. So commonly used that it has its own hotkey that happens to be T for transform. Presents you with a transform jack. Make sure you put all your other stuff away because it's going to fight for dominance with this. Note how the iconography works. As you hover over it with the up-down arrows, that means you're ready to translate on X and Y. Moving to the outer circle when it goes diagonal, that means you can scale symmetrically. Dragging over to the, and I'm kind of trying to approximate this as fast as possible. This looks like a fat kiwi. Squash on Y, asymmetrically scaling down on Y, down on X, or symmetrically scaling. There's also rotation, don't need it. There's also the ability to shear, Control Shift, also don't need it. Skew X.
I think scale the whole thing.
Here. Is this working?
Yeah.
If you need to reposition it, Control. Center pivot, that is. And then eyeball it. Get it rough, good approximation. I was too fat on X. AB, AB. Okay, a little big. I can see it's a little big. Scale down a little bit. Scale down a little bit. So I'm getting it pretty close. Look at that right there. And I'm just eyeballing it. AB, AB, right? Comparing it. Now that I got this comparison buffer and I really want to be like pixel accurate or really much better, check this out. I've established two viewers. That's predicated to have what? A wipe comparison. So if I hit W.
Is there a way to scale the whole thing rather than just like?
Yes, indeed. That is scaling the whole thing. This is scaling on Y. This is scaling on X. The whole thing. The whole enchilada. That would be good right now. Chicken enchilada with green chilies. Delicious. AB. Is everyone comfortable with the interactivity of the transform jack?
Just put that point on the transform, like where corner point.
Court, what? Which one?
That point on the transform in the notes.
In the notes? In the nodes?
Yeah, like.
Oh, the question is how do you create a dot? Anyone remember? What's the hotkey for dot? No? Period. Ah, D. D is disable. D to disable. Period, period, period. Or, yes. Janet Jackson's favorite song, Control. Bam. Control. Why? Because it gives you magic Pac-Man dots that once you click on them become tangibly delicious. Look at that. Transform jack, everyone good, right? So I've eyeballed it. I got it close. A-B comparison. As I was mentioning before, what might the intuitive hotkey for wiping be? W, right? If you don't see it automatically, rock the up and down arrows until you do see the split. Now that I see the split, this also offers its own interactivity. You can rotate it, rotate the split on horizontal or vertical. You can also dissolve. Look at that. Zzz, 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 zzz. Right there. Little dissolve action. For me, more specifically, I'm looking at hard edges, right? And alignment. So rotation on Y. Okay, so I need to go what? Bigger? Yes, on X. So I'm going to hop into my width on scale and nudge. Check this out. And then nudge over on X. Doop, doop. Look at that. See how I'm taking advantage of Nuke's awesome functionality for nudging and repositioning? Rotate on Y. Find the split. Stretch on height.
Also helps matching.
What's that?
It helps you matching the right perfectly matching.
That's the goal. That's the purpose of what I'm doing. Yes. To match height and width. Down on Y. Yeah. There. A sandwich. A delicious sandwich has been delivered. All right, so see if you get there. Everyone getting it? Anyone need help? We good? Check out. About 10. Right. Warmer. There you go. All right, so there. Three more. I didn't look at it. I didn't look at it. Go to the viewer. I didn't go to the viewer. One. B pipe eight backwards. Yes. How do you throw that? Throw that to one. Throw you over to one. Slide it to one. The easiest way to do stuff is this. Now you select it. Slide it enough. Move it. There you go. Yeah, me too. There it is. Okay. Marquee select the roto.
Maybe.
E to
Okay.
You know.
E. Now, kill everything else. Kill all. Kill all and let the comps sort it out. Select the pre-mult and hit T to transfer. Scaling in. Yes, messing around, aka scaling.
Perfect.
All right, I'm gonna eat in class. I'm fucking starving. I'm sorry. Don't eat in class, please. Oh boy, a beverage. Frosty beverage. All right, is everyone good? All right. Try the up-down arrows. So first of all, you need what? 2 viewers. Got 2 viewers? Make sure, obviously, the wipe is swiping past it, but also if you don't see it, like my up-down arrows, I just switched. If you don't see it, up-down arrows. And then do the same wipey wipe. Up-down arrows. There we go. So you have to do it at least once and you go, oh yeah, there you go.
You get it, man.
What?
You get it.
Some random food. I'm like, give me anything. I'm dying. I got some chips. I got a sandwich of undisclosed quality and nature.
What's your shirt for class?
What is this, Mr. Hand? What is this, Fast Times at Ridgemont High? Trust me, there'll be pizza days maybe in our future for sure. Come on. I literally have since this morning. All right. Working for people, or still.
Bringing some next time. Bringing some. I bring some next time.
You gonna? I'll bring cookies.
Whatever.
scratch by the clock. No, no, it's cool. All right, look at that magic, man. Now this allows you to really accurately align these objects, which is really good. Good.
I just did it.
Brother, you're out. Make it easy one. And if you select and hit E, start repeating that. Fucking starting. If you select
Oh, yes.
E.
That's right.
Expand feather. E. All right. All right. Closing out everything. There's my first starting point. Not bad. All right. So W for wipe. What else, other than the color, is wrong with this image? Yes. It's sharper, meaning it's a higher res image scaled down. It's got more resolution in the background, currently softer. What's the solution for that? Blur. Or sharpen the other one. Well, let's go blur. B.
It's easier to lose quality than it is to gain.
It always is, yes. Make up that which is not there. So get a little softy soft blur. There we go. You see, you guys got pretty accurate, which is good. So it's good to get comfortable with this. Like this kind of stuff you'll do all the time for like paint patching and fixing, aligning objects into plates. So you want to get comfortable with it if you're comping, the equal comp. Okay, now to keep it simple. Red, green, blue, balance, right? So keeping in mind what we talked about with pre-multiplication, we're gonna put it in before the pre-mult, so we don't have to worry about color. Color, math, multiply, right? I'm gonna hit the 4. It's gonna split it into its 4 primary compositions of all value, red, green, blue, and alpha channel. And you start tweaking. So you look at the image and you say, what do I have too much of and what do I need more of? Basically what you want to say in your head. So that being said, relative to the clouds around it, the patch looks too what? Green. I like that. I'll go with that. Drop green. So I can color wheel. You want to decrease green. Now, keep in mind though, one thing. If it goes too far, too low, you're going to go, what's the color opposite of green? Magenta. Right? So you're going to start to get this. There's also this inverse relationship between color and value. So as I decrease, not only am I increasing more magenta, but I'm darkening the value as I'm pulling that color out. So keep in mind that's also part of the variables as well. So definitely come down. Looking good. What do I need more of? Maybe blue. I agree. Looking at the clouds around me, what's the color opposite of blue? Yellow, right? So it's feeling a little yellow in context. I want to add blue and see what that has to offer. Increase. That feels better. Now, I see a slight red, maybe? It looks like it's a little red, right? So I'm using my eye. I'm kind of saying, like, how do I balance this out? Relative to these, I'm gonna nudge red down. It's looking better. And then if I want to tweak value brighter, that actually helped. I could see that my ocean was a little under before. So I like that. Let's see. Here's my before. There's my after. Again, I'm just using my eye and saying more, less. And this is a good exercise because, you know, you want to train your eye to see those color nuances, right? I'm going to walk around, see what you guys got. This is awesome. Better than awesome. I know why. Yeah, because you only got one viewer. You're telling it to split, and you only got one viewer. So, again, Florida MS and Florida CU, select that, hit 1. And then what do you want to look at? What do you want a comparison to?
Yeah,
Correct. 2. Is it working? Try wiping through it. It's already active. It's right there in front of your eyes. Right? Grab onto it and slide it across and see what that's off. There it is. That's how the wipe works. Right? Genius. How do you initiate a wipe? W! Yes. How do you toggle stuff off and on? By clicking on it. W on, W off. Wax on, wax off. Wax off. It is. What's the first little do? Location, location, location. Where's your cursor? Your cursor's up here, hit W. White. Cursor down here, hit W. Location, location, location. Yes. How do you get rid of which? Oh God, you got a roto spline now, and you've got a transform jack. How do you get rid of quizzes? I get quizzes for the whole test. How do you get rid of your roto overlay?
What do you mean overlay? Like
The graphical overlay of a roto spline.
Click off the roto.
Click off the roto.
Click off the roto now.
When you're done with it, you literally kill it. Yeah. Crush it like a cockroach in Los Angeles, a seedy Los Angeles apartment. Crush it. You're done with it. Put your toys away, kids. We're going back. Because why? You got a bunch of shit in front of your face. You can't see what you're doing. The software thinks, hey, do you want a roto? Do you want a transform check? Do you want to play with color? Make up your effing mind. Be specific. Be like a ninja. Focus exactly on what you want to do. Close out everything else. Now, you're good to go. When you want to, how about getting rid of your transform jack? Same thing. Either collapse it or tell it to go away by Xing it out. Okay? What's the other way of doing it? Any kind of overlay. How do you get rid of it?
Remove. Close here.
No.
Q.
Q. And we're trying. Q. Hit the Q. While your cursor, right? Not O. No. O was the overlay back in the day. And then they hijacked it to say input and output. I'm going to do like an editorial application. I know, right? But over the cursor, over the viewer, hit Q, overlay off, overlay on. Okay?
So just hides it.
Disable. Hides it, makes it invisible. Overlay, Q. And get in the habit of collapsing things you don't need. For obvious reasons. It's getting in your way, it's fighting what you're trying to do. Okay, what else? Everyone else good? Everyone else get good results? Let's see. Yeah. Pretty good. Right? Nice. It's cool, maybe a little dark, maybe Valley didn't do it, but the color's pretty close. Nice. Like it. Pretty good, but what? Color's a little what? Sorry, maybe red, maybe magenta. A little bit purplish. So play with those color options. Good. Alright, come on, make magic, man. Come on. Gotta make magic. Magic, we You're right here. We could be doing it. We could be doing it all night, baby. There's a song I think. All night long. Anyone? Do another song? Can you sing it for me?
I don't know.
What do you mean? I'm gonna clean that shit up and start playing it. Unless you sing it. You're almost there. You got it?
Yeah.
Oh, come on. Better, man, better. You guys need help? Alright.
Now you guys on Google looking up lyrics.
All night long? Lionel Richie. Anyone? It's like literally a pop culture meme. I'm surprised you wouldn't know. Alright. All night long? Have you seen the whole fucking commercial where what they did, like a Progressive Insurance or something like that? Where they're like, you can call and make rates, and they're trying to get them to say all night long to start singing it. It's great.
Gibberish.
You have no idea what I'm talking about? I guess I'm
We're
so
going to Party
old.
Carmaru Fiesta Forever. Party Parti.
Yeah. What do you mean gibberish? It's Lionel Richie. Lion, how do you spell his name? Lion.
Lionel.
O-N-E-L. Oh, I hear it already. Lionel Richie. Close. All fucking night long. No, I'm playing all night long, dude. Come on. How can you guys not know this song?
I know it.
You know it. All right, good. You might have to assign this to homework as well. Embed Lionel Richie in your render. Best 80s set ever. Look at this.
Pretty sky.
Yeah, how about that for a matte painting, huh? God, I need more audio. Somehow I'm squelched. We're in Fiesta forever. That's all I'm saying. All night long. It's the title. It's awesome. Like everything's in the 80s. All right. Right. So it looks like you guys got a pretty good job. You did a pretty good job. Get comfortable with splitting it, overlays, color-wise. Now, check this out. I'm going to have you disable all your magic. And then I'm going to show you something that's pretty sweet.
Which one's disabled? Is it
D as in disable. Or decapitate, or dismember, or disembowel, or dismiss.
Cheery.
Here, yes. Are you trying to imply something? All right, so disable that. So there's a node called color transfer. Makes life pretty easy. So with a static image, check it out. So I'm under the color on the hood. Color transfer. All right, what the hell is that? If I pop this in, Control-Shift-S. So it literally has two pipes, A, B pipe. And it doesn't really give you any really information of like, what do you control? It's got ROI, region of interest, and that's it. So we're assuming it's saying, okay, take from good color and apply it to bad color, right? So bad color would be background, yes.
The BNC just got stuck in the storm.
Yeah, it's stuck on all night long and not.
I love this. Wait, your video is seeing this?
Kinda.
Or are you just hearing the music? Are you sure it's just like earworm burrowing into your head? It could be that.
It totally is stuck on.
Wait, what is? The projector?
The VNC.
Oh, VNC.
stuck on the very beginning of the all night.
I restarted the VNC, it didn't help.
It didn't help? It's like a bloody curse?
Oh my god.
Is it going to go all night long, though? This is what we need to do. I don't know. This is going to be a long night. No. Okay, just, can you see the screen well enough? This is pretty simple. All night long. B for background, right? So check this out. Literally, it's pretty simple. All it really does is say, I'm looking at it's this wants to steal this color, right? So here versus this. Let's just connect it first, and then I'll show you it. This is bad. That's magically good. Look at that. It literally has hijacked the color from the A plate and applied it to B. Pretty sweet. Now, if I plug it into context, it'll go through the pre-molt. But when I go to look at it, okay, it's pretty damn good and like microsecond fast and like freaking robots taking our jobs. Typical, right? Fucking Autobot grader taking our jobs. But is it perfect? Perhaps not, I'd argue. Right? Super quick, super fast. High end is perfect. Nailed it. What's wrong with it though?
Why are the blues so much darker?
That's it, right? I don't know why robots fail. I know why humans succeed. Determination.
Contrast is too high. Or too low.
It's almost contrast, but what the high end is nailed. The low end is not, right?
Shadows.
The shadows are not correct. Based on today's discussion about color theory and color math, what's a good go-to for a low-end color lift? Right? So check this out. Append a grade node. Okay? You guys all night long in it back there? I can come back here and just show you. I'll come back and show you in a second. Give it a little lift. Literally a little. Now, you're still going to argue like, I don't know how to get there. But you do. And let me show you how. Red channel. Right? Green channel, blue channel. So you can literally say, I need more or less of these individual channels. So I'm in the blue channel. Do I need more or less of blue? Well, it's darker. I need more. So I need to come lift. That's better. Red channel.
Less.
No! You got a 50-50 chance of getting this right. I'll play all night long. Increase. Red. Too hot. Too dark. Just right. Goldilocks, right? Green.
More.
I don't know, man. It's a little questionable. All right, so literally you can color grade by channel. This is what I'm doing. I'm color grading by channel. I'm not even looking at color. That's where I've ended up. Let's take a look. It's pretty close. My green may be a bit hot. Let's see. But hell, that isn't way better, right? This, before, after. There you go. Robots and humans working together in harmony. Give that a shot. Green. Down a little bit. One last thing while you're doing that. Color analysis. The color picker. Introduced to you already. It's also a great analysis tool for kind of figuring out where you're at and where you need to go. Like if I wanted to match this as our hero, control click, control shift click, and average selection. 0.61, 0.61, 0.61. Right? Let's just say that's our target. Okay. If I want to use those tools, I could also kind of push my high end also to 0.61, 0.61, 0.61. But basically to get neutral, my red has to come up. My blue has to come down. So you can also tweak these until, like right now I'm average sampling, I can still increase red.
So the gain is from the highlights pretty much, from the whites.
Yes. Multiplication. Remember, pivoting on 0? There's a reason why I showed it. Not affecting the blacks. Pivots on 0s. Right? Remember? Kind of. I was kind of there. And then Lionel Richie hijacked my class. There you go. 48 across the board. There it is neutral. Now if I just change value a little hotter. What did I say what my target was? That's about 60, 61. It's about 59-ish, 59er. Pretty close. Maybe a touch more blue, or red.
When you're grading off of specific color channels,
Yes.
do you have to key the lift value when you change it?
Key the lift value, meaning animate it, key it. What do you-
Because just because I'm swapping between the channels and I'm playing with the lift, but it doesn't just affect blue or red or green, even if I'm only on that channel.
Well, if you're doing it, obviously, if you're doing it this way, you're affecting all channels in unison. You're affecting every channel. To break it into individual parts, how do you do it? Either this, red only, green only, blue only, or that. You know, increase, decrease value. Increase, decrease value. Right? Remember the whole playing around with it, split the colors, and there you go. Okay, so do you guys get it? Or is Lionel Richie still playing and mocking us? Question? So there's some cool color tools to get you. How do you attach it? So one thing is you literally, the software will tell you to just drag and drop. So check this out. If I'm like, I have no idea what's fucking software does.
Yeah.
It goes white. No. Minus.
Yeah. So,
That's it.
and then what's that name? So like actually RGB channel.
So the last part was grade.
Yeah, okay.
So how do you do the RGB channels? Anyone? Class? RGB. RGB, exactly. It's just on screen. Red, green, blue. Cursor has to be in the right location. Red, green, blue, RGB. Right? All night long these hotkeys. Right? I know. I got better. I'm cursed. I cursed the day I play a lot of coaching.
So is it
Hockey or grade?
yeah.
G. There you go. It is. And great. How do you go on the individual channels? Here. Color wheel. Oh. So do this color lift.
Oh.
Hover over here and bump your gamma up. Keys. Gamma up. Brighter. So we got a gamma. So the same thing. How do you get rid of your yellow? You don't want to see that edge. How do you get rid of that road? Let's say it was right now. How do you get out the properties? So that's everything. Now, what do you want? What are you dealing interacting with? Yes. Cool. So go hit red channel. And then gamma a little bit more. There you go. See how much you can see it better? So red means what? Means red is too dark or too light? Not game. Close this out so this is dealing with it. All you do is set those gray dots and say, next channel. Up here. Like, be very specific. First, just gotta be up here.
So, come on.
Exactly.
Sure has to be there. Blue, more than more.
I know people that have like lost it sooner than that too. It's crazy how strong
How do you get back? L, B again. Toggle on, toggle off.
And then
Neutralize your gamma. Toggle on, toggle off. Click on the red button. Toggles off. Go ahead and click it again. Gamma up, gamma off. Almost everything in Nuke is like a toggle.
okay. All right.
There you go.
Awesome. Thank you.
All that along. Okay, oh god. It started, it continued. Did you guys get it? No.
It's like make a joke.
Well, okay, you gotta come up with homework of awesomeness. Come up with a grade your favorite movie or grade your Instagram filter choice. Yes.
So, I'm just gonna wrap this up. It's using the technique to
Yes.
like other reasons for getting
Well, connecting it. So how do you get a right path? So let's do. Let me do it for the low pass. How do you write out a image sequence? How to do it?
Right.
That's right. That's the hockey. Right. Then you got to give it a path. Right. So everything has to go back to Z. So let's just say, I mean, this is a still image, so it's not so exciting unless I animate a color correction or Lionel Richie, one or the other. W. Give it a path to Z, which is where your renders are. Now, I've got a thing called Nuke renders, right? So again, where did I click? File, right? Nuke renders. I created that. I did that. If I want to create a directory, there's the button. Plus folder. Pretty intuitive. Pretty Microsoft Word-ish. Should make sense. Name that folder. Let's just say I called mine Nuke Lessons 3 like I've already done. Go inside it. Give it a path. For a statics image, you probably want to do a JPEG. Let me do a JPEG sequence example for you. This would be to embed padding, right? Most of these images you want to do for render for homework will be an MOV sequence. Make sense? No? I'll come back. Rest of the class, how to write an image. You feeling comfortable or lost? Okay. Let's just say it's lesson 3, comp version 01. Okay. Dot. Now, for most things, we're doing MOV sequence. Fine. I want you to do an image. Let's get some image sequences under your belt so you feel comfortable with it. For the love of Lionel, right here. Boom. Right? So what I do, hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. 4 leading zeros separated by dots. And now, how do you say a JPEG extension? JPG. Boom. Zoom in. Lessons 1 comp version 1 0001 bless you dot JPEG. Look, forcibly JPEG. Look, quality slider. Let's go 1. Subsampling, no. Full 444 uncompressed JPEG. Madness. There you go. That's a path to write out a JPEG image. It's going to give leading zeros. You should be comfortable with it anyway. If you're going to do a whole image sequence, you're going to need to know how to do that. Still image can be without, if it's going to be one image, it can be without the leading zeros. But.
So let's say we do like a 5 filters, we can render all 5 at the same time.
Yes, if you want to. The question is, can you render all 5 different variations on a theme? Sure. Let's just say I want to do a smaller resolution. Reformat. Okay. Yeah. And let's just say this is a special 720 version. Full HD, this one's a 720. See the difference? I'm going to copy this right node and stick it. Look how fast that works. Give it a new path. Let's call this comp low res. Sure. Okay. I've got 2 write notes. How do I render them? Marquee select, render selected, or certainly just even render all write notes. You're going to render all write notes. If you want to do consecutive or consecutive order, consecutive. You can come in here and say, find it here. Render order. Where the hell are you? Oh, here. Render order 1. And let's just say this one would be render order 2. So if I say render all, this one would render 1 first. This one would render second, and so on, and so on, and so on. Okay. Good? Rendering to disk. So how do I render locally? Here, click on render. It's going to give you a dialog box. 1 of 1, yes. You can render in the background render if so desired. For this would work. Here, render, sure, boom. Did you get it?
No,
What-
that's
what?
like an error. I'm doing something wrong.
All right, I'm going to swing back. So you gave it a directory, but you didn't give it a name. So click on it again. So you make it all renders. So in there now, give it a name. So call it like lesson 3 underscore pop. And then let's do the version 2, like underscore version 01, or even the syntax normally is B01, B001. And just like Duke will recognize that and follow it, and literally allows you to really easily update stuff. So to do an image pad sequence, do dot and the 4 pad, 4 hashtags. So it's yep, we got it. And then dot, and we're going to force the extension JPEG to hit save. Now zoom in and look at your syntax. Don't click on it. Right. RSP. Fixed it. Got it. Yeah. Latent error. You fixed it. I mean, you had an error. I mean, sometimes you gotta like disable, enable it, or refresh the graphics, and it'll go away.
So each time I need this, I want to save something out of this, no matter what. I think the important part is the 4 hashtags.
Well, that's for leading zeros. When you render out of, are you rendering anything out of Maya currently, or not? Are you rendering images yet, like this right here? Yeah. So then, what in your double click on it? You're doing it right here, right? Maya is literally doing this for you already. So double click on it. So what do you see right there? See a .001 JPEG?
Yeah.
That's the same frame padding, the same syntax that Maya is laying down for you. So that's how you got out of Maya. Literally, the render settings, you say name file name dot padding, and it's like it's going to be hashtags, for example, and dot whatever the extension, a JPEG, an EXR. Right? We're doing the exact same thing explicitly here. These leading zeros are the same that Maya is generating. The way to do it in Duke is this. I'll go over it. You got it. You basically, there you go. If you want to do the same kind of syntax for this, again, that's how you do it. Hashtags. And or %04 D, which is more obscure. Are you going to render? Are you going to? Do you want moving images? What do you want to do? Stills?
So that's for sequence.
If you ever want to do moving images in movies,
Okay, got it. That's what I figured.
right? That's why I'm having you Get comfortable with it. If you want to do a single still, I mean, you did the same thing here with leading zeros. Let's just say you're testing renders. You're going to do this, and you're like, I'm not. It's an animated sequence, but I just want to test one render. You want to set it up this way. You can render one render. If it's only going to be a still, then great. But you're already set up to render the entire sequence as an animated sequence. Animation of this train moving down the tracks. Giant pterodactyl flies down, tears up one of them. They could happen. All right.
Thank you.
So, anyone get an idea of how to write nodes out? We'll go over one more time. Forcing the extension in Nuke, you want to force the extension. So, the same is true when you're making these decisions in Maya, when you're setting things to render. You want to say, is it going to be an AXR sequence? Is it going to be a JPEG sequence? Is it going to be a single frame? Click on animation. Is it going to be a sequence, right? So we've done this as an image sequence. It's going to do 0, 0, 0, 1. If I remove my leading zeros, it'll give me one single image. But I want you to understand how padding does in fact work. Okay, so however many hashtags is however many leading zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and what? Dot, enter. Just for your own information, it could also be this. Again, really arcane and different. %0 4D. Well, that's fun. The exact same result where the number 4 or 8 leading zeros. Another way to do the same thing. And the question is why? Moving images, animation, more than one still. Movies, right? As we like to call them. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, everyone cool with rendering stuff?
Yep.
All right, everyone else, any other questions? Color work, go forth and make color, yes. A problem. With this particular one?
Not with this one.
Oh, with your other project. Okay, take a look. All right, so if you're good, you're good. We'll see you next week. And come back with some cool color. Okay. Instagram filters? What are these? Your choice. Freedom. Make camera tracker. What about we'll give out.
I got all the road over done. Everything was masked and feathered, but I couldn't figure out how to get the mask to apply.
So, yeah, drag this and make some more room. You got a stencil. So, make this cluster of this, including the lower nodes, and move to the left. You got it. So this is your weapon choice. Drag it over here. Select the M. And then snap that guy into the right. And that. Look at that. It's already there. Make it a stencil. That should be it. What kill everything, including the X, will kill everything, including this one. Yes, kill all. This way. There you go. Now, for one last thing, your road looks fantastic. For one last thing, you want to constrain the volume of your noise. So that
constraint below as well.
Yeah, well, okay, so the noise, double click on the road. Make RGB as well. As yes. Yes. Cool. So, step one, you want it to be the outside effect. You want to make it inverted. Yes. And lastly, color chip. Value and alpha is 0.
Some teachers are like that. But as far as
B, HSV. There you go. Look, there's yours. That's it.
Brenda. Or
What?
Brenda.
I'm the best teacher ever? What? I didn't think I thought I heard. What?
Martin.
Yes.
Well, right.
Correct. Yeah.